Hello and welcome to Inside Devils, our weekly Man United show, bringing you everything coming out of Old Trafford. We are back to winning ways for the first time at Stamford Bridge since 2020. Helping me dissect it is Jamie Jackson, Angelina Kelly, and we will have Alex Crook joining us as well. There he is, he's happy. And despite illness, he's here. Crookie, how you feeling? Are you back in the game?
Not quite a full pelt. I'm probably sort of Ugarte level at the moment.
Well, I've seen Ugarte doing some content in the Man United barbershop at Carrington, looking happy. So we're going to go for that version of Ugarte. So I can't wait to catch up with you. It's good that you're here, Crookie. This show is sponsored by BetMGM. Download the app or visit betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus, gambleaware.org. Please gamble responsibly. Me and Ange are here in the studio, and we have Jamie Jackson as well down the line, the rock star. That is Jamie Jackson as well. What a place to start with 3 points, by the way. Crookie, a massive win. We had to win that game to bounce back after a really bad performance against Leeds and a real humbler against Leeds. 10 points clear of Chelsea now. How much of a big result was that?
Massive, potentially season-defining. I think it's going to take some effort now for Chelsea to reel us in. It should be the result that cements a place in the top 5 and therefore Champions League football next season. It wasn't a great watch. It was difficult at times because Chelsea dominated possession without ever really looking like scoring. So credit to United for that with a patched up defence. As you know, I'm sure you were going to share it anyway. I wasn't happy with Aiden Heaven and his start to the game. I thought he was going to give away a penalty every time the ball came in the box, but he improved and arguably was man of the match by the end. So to go away from home to a place they don't win very often and pick up a clean sheet and 3 points, I think is absolutely terrific. And you look at Michael Carrick now, I'm sure we're going to come on to his future over the course of this recording. He's beaten City, he's beaten Arsenal, he's beaten Villa, he's beaten Chelsea. Every chance he beats Liverpool next month. I think if you're Michael Carrick's representatives, you're knocking on the door of Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada and saying, where's the contract? You know, what more can he do? Yeah, absolutely. As you know, here on Inside Devils, we are about maximum accountability. So you are right, Crookie. I'm going to get to Jamie Jackson in 1 second because we've got to hold Jamie accountable for his prediction as well because he thought United would lose. So, Jamie, you hold fire. But, Mr. Crook, you did say the group chat was going off.
That didn't sound like an apology.
It didn't. It sounded like a let me get there first before they bring it up. And Crookie was sort of saying, paraphrasing here, but Aiden Heaven, not too sure about this. I said, Crookie, I said, believe. This is during the game. I said, believe. He's doing all right. Some good tackles. By the end of the game, Man United are posting about that Heaven performance. We're getting great stats. And the kid's coming out the cold, away at the Bridge, hasn't played in ages, keeps a clean sheet, goes in on Liam Delap. And he was excellent, Crookie, wasn't he? He was. And it just shows you should never rush to judgment, which I probably did in the early stages of that game. But yeah, no, he was. And as I say, you know, to have so many central defenders missing, I think it was massive to go there and get a clean sheet. Under the radar, but I thought the keeper was excellent again. You know, didn't have a worldie save to make, but it's so reassuring the way that he commands his penalty area when you look at the goalkeepers United have had in the recent past. So I think when you're talking about player of the season, obviously Bruno Fernandez is going to win it hands down, but definitely Sonny Lomans deserves an honourable mention. Yeah, a big shout. Jamie, let's get over to yourself. You was sort of predicting, well, not sort of, you predicted a Man United loss last time we spoke about it. Ange was sort of talking about this is on brand with us. But it wasn't to be that. Man United went in and got a massive, massive 3 points. What did you make of it, Jay?
Well, this just shows how much I love Manchester United fans, because if I predicted United to win, they'd have lost. So I was doing it for United.
Reverse psychology. It's all deliberate.
That's the kind of guy I am. But it's interesting listening to what Alex is saying there, because it reminds me yet again, you know, the job Carrick's done. I mean, he's 10 points now clear of, the Champions League. If you just, it's difficult to sort of remember exactly how bad it was, how chaotic it was, how sort of farcical it had become under Amorim, where basically he was coming out, as we all know, in that sort of famous Friday press conference before the Leeds game, I think it was, sort of going against the club, Wilcox, etc., etc. So Carrick's walked in from, that point and has done what he's done. And again, when Alex reels off the teams he's beaten, it is pretty remarkable. Listen, just because it's happened once does not mean to say it will repeat again. So I'm talking about Solskjaer here when he did a sort of similar job, the PSG game away, the Rashford penalty, they sort of overturned that result and went through the Champions League, etc., and he got the job. And it sort of, listen, it wasn't a complete disaster. But all I'm getting to saying is I'm still not 100% convinced about Carrick. Not because I think he shouldn't get it, but I just want to see the end of the season. Alex is right. What more can he do so far? He really can't do any more. So I'm not being critical. I'm just sort of being, it's just a sort of...
Cautious.
His experience of covering United basically since the last season and a half of Ferguson. Obviously, Ferguson's last season was ace, but then after that, it's been like this, so many false dawns. So I don't, I'm not criticising Carrick. I just want to be cautious because I've so many times thought, this guy, whoever it is at the time, is going to do it. But he couldn't, Alex is right, he can't really have done much more.
Yeah, there's not really much more. Listen, I do get that from the perspective of we think we found the one and it ends up not being the one. So just from a point of view of that perspective, that I guess is probably right to be cautious. And for yourself, you was talking about it would be very on brand. I thought that was a really good term. That stuck with me, that did. It'd be very on brand for Man United to sort of go and lose this game with what we've seen in the past. It's kind of like what Jamie's talking about. We think we're on a good run. Is this, is that, the other? And then you go, we've lost against Leeds, and you back that up with a terrible performance at Chelsea, and now they're 4 points behind you, and they're a terrible team themselves. Very on brand for Man United, but we avoided that, and it literally goes back the other way. Is that just a stark reminder of just how quickly football can change? Like within a few days, you're down, feeling low again after Leeds, thinking, worried about this Chelsea game. You win it, and you go, 10 points clear, and oh yeah, Chelsea are rubbish.
Yeah, it's the magic of football, I guess, isn't it? But I think, touching on the Michael Carrick thing, there were a lot of questions about Carrick going into this game, and he's responded really well. You think about the Newcastle loss and then the Aston Villa win. Obviously, it wasn't as big of a win, but it was still a very important win. So I think the fact that he's been able to respond again is really important. And I think, you look at that Chelsea team, like, yes, Man United had less possession, they had fewer shots, only one on target, the XG was lower, you can go on and on and on. But despite all those things, we were still able to grind out a result at a stadium that we really, really struggle at. I mean, this was United's third win at Stamford Bridge since 2002.
It's crazy.
Like, it's insane, isn't it? So I think there are so many positives to take from it. And yeah, you can argue that this is a bit of a standard, basic Chelsea team at the moment, the way that they've been performing. So maybe you should be beating them. But still, they're in competition for those European places. So really important. And I think you look at Chelsea, Manchester United were interested in signing Liam Delap last summer. He hasn't been great. Alejandro Garnacho used to be at Manchester United.
Still is, mate. He's playing for us.
Yeah, exactly.
He was playing for us on Saturday night.
Yeah, it was awful, wasn't it? And awful for Chelsea. I mean, Cole Palmer, keeps getting linked with Manchester United. We don't really know what's going on there with him. Is the grass always greener with Chelsea? I think you have to look at it like none of them, in my opinion, would get into Manchester United starting 11 at the moment.
Oh, that's a big shout.
Listen, a fit Cole Palmer firing on all cylinders, maybe. But, sorry, I mean those players that I'm talking about. So, Delap, Garnacho, Cole Palmer. We were happy that Garnacho was sold. And I think the main thing from that, minus the stuff online that's been quite amusing to observe, what a great piece of business that has been. It now looks like Chelsea are wanting to get rid of him. And you kind of feel a little bit sorry for Garnacho because there is a talent there, but for some reason, whether it's, I don't know, his attitude or certain things that are maybe going on behind the scenes, I'm not too sure. But I think that for me, watching that game, I was like, what a great move. That was to get rid of him.
It was really ironic being in the stadium. I was on the co-coms with the guys doing it up in the gantry, and when Garnacho came on, there was this huge roar from the Chelsea fans of like, right, let's stick the boot in on Man United. Esteval's up to come off, which is not great. We were kind of fortunate he came off because he was looking lively, by the way. He nearly scored. And there was this huge uproar for Garnacho coming on, and the away fans were brilliant. They gave him all the stick that they needed to for a former player, playing at their ground, etc. After about 7.5 minutes, I'm going to say, I counted, after 7.5 minutes, the Chelsea fans had enough. They'd had enough. They joined us in going at Garnacho.
They turned on him.
And then after that, after 10 minutes, Garnacho had enough. He'd stopped going at Dalot because he thought, I used to train against this guy, couldn't get past him then. Dalot thought, I remember you. I used to have you in my back pocket in training, mate. You're not doing anything today. Dalot turned into prime, I don't know, Gary Neville. You know what I mean? Nothing was going past him. It was brilliant. And Garnacho then started just falling over, you know, tentative, poor crosses. Casemiro got in on the act, taking the ball off him. And then at the end, I'm not going to lie, I am a bit of a petty Pete sometimes. Some of the players' posts was brilliant. Luke Shaw knew exactly what he was doing. He posted a picture on Instagram. Great win, lads. It's him pushing Garnacho to the floor. Our admin even got a wind of it as well. They're putting up, what a performance at the bridge. Loads of compilations of us nicking the ball off of Garnacho. So listen, it's about time we got Chelsea back. You know, the Mason Mount move hasn't gone well for us. He's our number 7, big wages. And actually on Mason Mount, big up to him as well, because he was shushing people when the Chelsea fans were giving him some stick as well.
But the way that the Chelsea fans have got this hatred for him, I get that he was, you know, the poster boy and all this type of thing, but it's not like he's gone to Man United and has, like, taken the world by storm. Like, he's had injury issues, he's not been at his best, so it kind of feels like, you know, kicking a dog when it's down or something. Like, it's just... I didn't get it personally.
Well, it's because I think his dad made sort of remarks saying he's back home and this, that, and the other. They were like,
but you know what? If you spend all your time worrying about, I know we've spoken about family members getting involved, but you know, people could have turned on Tchouaméni with what his brother did. But Tchouaméni in that game was absolutely brilliant. The midfield looked way better. He's so much better on the ball than Ugarte. I mean, that's obvious. But I think just the security in the possession, you know, it just makes tricky games like that easier. But I thought he was brilliant as well.
He was. Crookie, Bruno Fernandez, another assist, his 18th assist of the season.
He's going to break that record.
3 more, as Ange says. He breaks the record. He doesn't equal it like Kevin De Bruyne did for Thierry Henry. He will stand on more than that. Are we looking at the PFA Player of the Year here?
Probably not, in all honesty, because it's going to go to whoever wins the league. You think if it's Arsenal, probably a Declan Rice or a Gabriel. If it's a Manchester City, probably an Antoine Semenyo. But certainly the best of the rest is Bruno Fernandes, his prize. And he's been such a driving force in this team. Obviously, he's had a lot of flack along the way from rival supporters, from pundits, and at times from United supporters as well. But he's just got that touch of class. You know, it wasn't a brilliant performance, but the one moment of quality in the game has led to the goal. And as good as Cunha's finish was, it was the play down by the corner flag from Bruno that really teed him up. And yeah, I think he will go on and break the record. Just on Garnacho, karma can be a beautiful thing in football, can't it? And I don't think it was a coincidence that Luke Shaw put that post up. I think it was deliberate, and I think that tells you that he was as unpopular with his teammates as he was with the fans by the time he left. And if we're going to credit the old manager for anything, I guess it is weeding the rats out of the dressing room.
Oh, strong words from Crookie. But do you know what, though? On a serious note, you could feel it and see it. So after the game, I was observing that the players weren't going up to Garnacho, even as a former player, giving him a bit of a hug. You know, and then a lot of the Instagram comments, you know, they were very comical under Luke Shaw's post. Like Joshua Xerxes was in the comments section. Bruno was posting, that's a violation. Laughing emojis from some of the boys. So it looked to be in Tchouaméni who had laughing emojis on Luke Shaw's post. So that does suggest that, yeah, he didn't leave on great terms. I know Garnacho did an interview just before this game saying there were things I did that were wrong, etc. So, look, yeah, I get it.
And now Chelsea want to sell him, which is the ultimate irony.
Yeah, and ultimately, exactly, Chelsea want to sell him after a year. Jamie, for you, just to keep the needle on Bruno Fernandes at the minute, I saw Samuel Luckhurst do a piece at The Sun sort of suggesting that in the mix zone after speaking to Senny Lummans, he suggested that, you know, Bruno will also be staying at the football club. How imperative is it that he stays? And do you think that's even a conversation piece? Is it like, no, United are going to get Champions League, Carrick probably be the manager, Bruno wants to stay and achieve big things, or do you still worry that his future may not be here in the summer?
Well, I mean, I think he's obviously stand out, not only United's best player and has been since he signed, was it 2020? But he's, you know, top 2 or 3 in the league. I hear what Alex is saying about why he might not get the Player of the Year award, the PFA. But I tell you what, if you're a pro, which is obviously who votes for this, you know, the players in the Premier League, I can't see how you could see past him. Will he leave? Well, he's nearly left once. He did that interview, do you remember? I think with the Portuguese FA, which is a bit odd.
Yeah.
That the time. I don't
Saying
know
he didn't feel like they did enough to keep him, and
and all this palaver. Now, at the time, you could read that, and I think it's fair enough, as maybe preparing the ground a little bit for a possible exit post the World Cup. So nothing surprised me in football. I understand what you mean, but I never agree with this thing, or you can't afford to sell a player, especially if you're Manchester United, because you're Manchester United, but I do get it because he's so good. I wouldn't be surprised either way. And I know that sounds like I'm sitting on the fence, I probably am, whether he leaves or not. But he is a heck of a player. I've never quite understood the criticism. Someone who sort of saw him or sees him every home game in a way in Europe when United are in Europe. I see a lot of Bruno Fernandez. Very rare he has a bad game. He might have a bad passage in a game where he makes the odd. But I just didn't get it. I thought it was jealousy. And this whole thing about him being petulant, I don't buy that either. If Roy Keane had been in this team, right,
100%.
that would have gone down as petulant because it would have been in a sort of losing team or not successful team. So therefore, what sort of comes across as a strength when you're winning, and don't get me wrong, Keane was a massive force for why they were winning. But, in this team, he would have been looked upon as a moaner and a whinger. That's the difference. That's all it is.
100% agree.
Fernandez is, an amazing player.
Is that testament to Carrick, Jamie? Is it that he might stay after this? Because under Amorim, it felt like he might have been pushing, or I'm playing in a sixth position. What is this? Where are we going here? And then all of a sudden, Michael Carrick's come in. We've beat all the teams that Crookie's just mentioned, and some more to come potentially. Michael Carrick gets the job. We're in the Champions League. The club are clearly trying to invest properly into midfield and other areas, and he might sort of look at the project differently with Carrick since he's come in.
Well, that's what I was going to say about this interview with the Portuguese FA. While Amorim was in place, and I wonder if it was to do this ridiculous, antiquated, stuck in its way sort of 3-4-3 with him as a, as a number 8, which he can play because he's a class player. But so yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think it's a very good point. I think it'd be excellent business, great news, attractive a player sort of thing if Fernandez does stay. He's still only 31. He's got that classic physique, a bit like Ryan Giggs. Because he's just built for football. He's not necessarily stocky or muscular. He's just lithe, yes, and he never gets injured, right?
Never.
The odd injury when
he had a dodgy hamstring this year, and he was back within sort of a week, I think it was. Something like that.
He's about 2 weeks out the whole time.
His whole life.
He's priceless because it's obvious to say any player, if they're injured all the time, like sorry to say it, Martinez is serially injured. Good player, but he's not much use when you come to the sort. If you want to be ruthless about it, he's not much use if you can't player. So yeah, I think the and I'm going to contradict myself a little bit. I think they should definitely do everything they can to keep him. But on the other hand, if it's 125 million or 100 million from Saudi, again, I wouldn't take it. But I could see the sort of logic if you look at Elliot Anderson and another big, massive
from a business perspective.
I don't think they should sell him.
Yeah, Crookie, we do want to ask you about some links regarding transfers. There's been some reports from the Telegraph. James Ducker has reported that Aurelien Tchouaméni of Real Madrid is on Manchester United list of potential targets to rebrand, to redo, to rebuild the Manchester United midfield in the summer. Have you heard anything about that? And if not, if so, what's your thoughts on him as a player to come in?
Well, James is usually really well sourced, so I'd imagine there is some substance to this link. Camavinga's mentioned in the same article. I think he's definitely a player that Real Madrid are open to offers for. And the reason I think Tchouaméni makes a lot of sense, he has a lot of the same characteristics as Casemiro, which is obviously going to be a big part of the summer, how you replace him. I thought he played really well again at Chelsea on Saturday night. And players from outside the Premier League tend to be more cost effective, certainly in terms of transfer fees. Obviously, command big wages being a Real Madrid player, which maybe would go against a little bit of what Ineos are trying to do. Obviously, we know the names that are out there from within the Premier League. Sandro Tonali, although I keep being told that if he had his way, he would go back to Italy, maybe AC Milan, rather than swap Premier League clubs. Elliot Anderson, who Manchester City are keen on. Adam Wharton, who I reported last week, Liverpool are keen on. Obviously, Carlos Baliba is a link going back to the summer and the January window. So the names are well documented. I think they do need 2 midfielders.
Minimum.
Because Ugarte is going to go. For obvious reasons, and Casemiro, as I mentioned, and the squad just, I think what we've seen in the last couple of games against Leeds and against Chelsea is the squad is really light, even when they're only playing minimal number of games a season. When it comes to the Champions League, you like to think the domestic cup runs were going a lot longer next year, and they did this. Suddenly you're talking about playing 60, 70 games a season. So the squad looks really short. The other name that's come up to me a couple of times, and again, this might tie in with what happens with Bruno Fernandez, is Morgan Gibbs-White at Nottingham Forest. If they are looking for a more attack-minded midfielder, quietly, he's had a really good season at Forest. He's scored more goals this season than at any other point in his career. And I think if they don't win the Europa League and therefore get Champions League football, I think he's a player who will be looking to move on and push on for that next level. By the way, how grateful is he that Marinakis blocked him joining Tottenham?
Yeah, exactly. On the cusp of something special. Also, and look where Spurs are, exactly. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Crookie, just before you go, we played Brentford at home Monday night. Not counting any chickens before they've hatched, because I tried to do that against Leeds and I got stung. But, what type of performance are you looking at, and what do you think the result will be?
Good time to play Brentford. I think I was there at the G-Tech against Everton a couple of weeks ago. They drew 2-2, but they weren't quite at the same levels they were earlier in the season. Obviously played out a dour 0-0 draw at home to Fulham, which kept our talkSPORT listeners royally entertained on Saturday. So their form has tailed off a little bit. I think this is a game at home that United need to win. I'd like to see them start a little bit faster. Well, a lot faster than they did against Leeds. And it still seems to me that, the second half of games are better under Carrick than the first. But if they do that, I think they can get the 3 points. And that would pretty much cement it, wouldn't it? Depending on what happens elsewhere this weekend. One more win, I think, and United are guaranteed top 5.
Crookie, get yourself off, get some dry toast with no butter on it. Start slowly. Get yourself back fit and firing again.
Cheers, guys. Enjoyed it.
Angie did touch on, sort of the summer. We asked him about Tchouaméni there.
Yeah.
Midfield, of course. But for you, what are the positions that we need to be looking at this summer? Because we are light. We are going to be playing an awful lot more games next season if everything goes to plan. And the squad needs to be bigger.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because you could make an argument for pretty much every area of the pitch, minus maybe the goalkeeper, because he's doing well. But I think midfield, definitely. I think Cookie touched on Elliot Anderson. He is a player that he is younger, 3 years younger than Tchouaméni. He can play in a 6 and an 8, whereas Tchouaméni is more of a pure 6. However, we have to be honest, there are a lot of clubs that are interested in Elliot Anderson, so it would make sense to look at other options. Tchouaméni, World Cup winner with France, he's a big, big talent. Interesting that he was kind of brought in as a bit of a Casemiro replacement. Now Man United could also be taking him. I think that you have to be a little bit careful with Real Madrid's gifts, though, because... Rafael Varane was, didn't...
He was all right.
He was all right, but he was a little bit
Just
past it. You've got Angel Di Maria, less said about that, the better. Casemiro, dipped at times, but has overall been good. But normally Real Madrid, when they say adios to a player, it's for a reason. However, on paper, he looks great. But I think regarding other areas, it's got to be the defence. I mean, you've got Martinez and De Ligt, they can't stay fit. Yoro and Heaven are still very, very young. And as much as we're all happy that Harry Maguire is staying, let's be honest, would he be in a starting 11, for Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool? Probably not. And if you are wanting to genuinely be challenging for a Premier League title, I'm not saying Man United necessarily ready to do that, but if that's the aim and ambition, I don't know if Harry Maguire at this stage in his career can necessarily take you to something like that. And that's not me trying to be horrible about him, because, we all love Harry Maguire, but I just think that we need to be a little bit smarter. Centre-backs are a must. I think you look at Nottingham Forest, Milenkovic or Murillo would be quite good. I think you've got Marcos Senesi's had a very good season at Bournemouth. Yeah. And interestingly, he's out of contract in the summer. Spurs are apparently front runners for him.
The cheek of them.
I know.
But it is dependent on.
Yeah, but I think if United wanted a freebie, I'm pretty sure that he'd happily choose Manchester United over playing in the Championship. So I think left back as well, maybe Luke Shaw. He's done well to stay fit this season, but there's no guarantees with him. Miles Lewis-Skelly could be a good signing. He seems kind of on the outs with Arsenal. Mikel Arteta doesn't seem to trust him this season. He slipped down the pecking order. Maybe for PSR purposes, Arsenal might want to cash in. So he could be a good option. He can also play in midfield as well. So those would be the other areas apart from the midfield. I think it's got to be that defensive, the back four.
Jamie, Ange basically says everything.
Yeah.
We need everything.
We need everyone and everything all at once.
And to be honest, I don't disagree with any of what I just said there. We need so much. We're so light, even with one game a week, when we have to dip into squad rotation or squad depth or lack of, it's alarming. You know, we took Harry Maguire out of the back four against Leeds. Look what happened. We took Kobbie Mainoo out of the midfield against Leeds. Look what happened. And at other times when players are off form and we have to dip into Ugarte, you know, look when Malacia came off the bench at Newcastle. Look what happened. He has been out for a long time, not putting it all on him, but we just don't have the quality in depth. So forget challenging in the Champions League and managing serious game loads with this type of squad. What are you hearing, Jamie, from you know, your sources, your feelings, your people around it all, and what's your personal thoughts on, you know, where United need to go to in terms of the transfer market, what sort of individuals they need?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with every word Ange just said there. I think it is obvious, the midfield, 2 A-list frontline players, I suggest. And what we're talking about here really is the dodgy recruitment with regard to depth for your squad, for Manchester United squad. Again, sorry to bring it out, since Ferguson left. I mean, it's just been, you know, every sort of 2 or 3 years I will do a piece for The Guardian, which I look, you know, I'll list all the transfers ever since then. And it's changed recently, don't get me wrong, but there's one point, the only one I could actually say was an absolute success, it was only about 3 years ago, was for Bruno Fernandez, yes. Yeah. You know, you can maybe have an argument for Paul Pogba, but he was a bit up and down. But other than that, it was a little bit piecemeal. Okay, Zlatan, but, you know, he was towards the end of his career, etc., etc. So it sounds obvious, but recruitment for a football club is the key, and that's recruitment of your chief executive, your sporting director, if you've got one, your manager, of course, and then the players. And the players really is where it's at. So, yeah, I mean, Ange is right. I'd say right. I don't know if you mentioned this, Ange, but a right back, you can make an argument. But how you started off by what you were saying is completely correct. You can make a case for all areas, most positions. I was interested that Cunha, I think, his goal at Chelsea, I think his 8th goal of the season, I think, and they're all in the Premier League. That's good, they're all in the Premier League, but he needs to score more, as in they all do, really, because I know it's not his thing to say, but that's how you win matches, stroke a league title. Stuart Pearce always comes out with an interesting statistic. He always says it's not completely correct, but he says that each goal gets you a point in the league. And actually, if you look at the league table now, I think they've scored 65 and 63 or something, Arsenal and City. That's kind of the points they've got. So it's not an exact science, but it kind of equates to that. Yeah. You know, if I know that and I'm picking it up off Stuart Pearce, you'd like to think Jason Wilcox is, you know, et cetera, who paid the proper money, you know, to identify what you need to do, would be on to that. Yeah, so a 20 at least Premier League goal striker, I think, would really shoot you up there. And again, I'm not too sure who the last one was. I don't think Marcus ever quite got to 20 in the league. Was it be Zlatan? I'm not sure. Someone might
probably.
I might be definitely Van Persie before then. But you're sort of saying it's difficult to recall.
We don't often have it, do we? It's been missing for so long.
It's been a striker drought.
What's interesting, and the producer just said to me now, you know, we scored 5 less goals than Arsenal, I think he said. Now, you could say that, listen, Arsenal maybe aren't actually the best people to aim for in terms of scoring goals. But I will say this.
They've been without Kai Havertz. Gyökeres hasn't been the
and they've
signing
invested
they
heavily,
expected.
and they're top of the league for now. But actually, one thing we did do is invest into Premier League proven players, plus Sesko, to improve our attack. And we have scored more goals for it. Like, even before, I think we do forget, before Ruben Amorim actually left, we were only a few points off the top 4. We had already improved, and Bruno was in really good form. And I want to reference Carl Anker, actually, from The Athletic, because I was listening to their Talk of the Devils podcast on the way in today, and he made a really good point of, like, he sees this group of players that are sort of taking it in turns to have good patches. So earlier in the season, and Mbeumo was flying, and we're like, wow, I remember going signing of the season, and Mbeumo, look at that. Scored against Liverpool, he scored against Arsenal, he scored against City, like, this is why we bought him, this, that, and the other. And then since Carrick's come in, and Bruno's kind of tailed off, but then you look at Cunha, and Cunha's now having his little moment to kind of shine. Then Sesko was going through a bit where it was like, start him, he's scoring all these goals. He started the last 2, hasn't looked quite as good. So he likened it to days under Sir Alex Jamie, where Antonio Valencia would have a good few months, then Van Persie would do this, or Ashley Young would have his time, etc., etc. And I thought that was a really interesting point from Carl, which I thought was a really good one. And on Cunha, I look at, and Mbeumo, I look at the recruitment, and I do look back at the big games, and I look at Cunha, I go, right, well, he's come off the bench at Arsenal, got the winning goal. He's come off the bench against City, got a decisive assist with Patrick Dorgu. He got the goal to get us back 2-1 ahead of Villa when we had to win. In Amorim's last game, we're 1-0 down, gets us a point at Leeds. He gets the winner at Chelsea. So these are big moments. This is why you buy the big players, right, for the big games. Now, has been times where Cunha has been a little bit on the cusp, want a little bit more.
That terrible touch at Chelsea.
At Chelsea.
He had to redeem himself.
But he redeemed
from
himself.
that one.
Yeah, I remember against Fulham, actually, when he wins the free kick that leads to the goal that we score from a Bruno Fernandez cross to Casemiro. He also scored in the near post as well in the same game, I believe. He scored against Brighton in his first game. So he is getting goals and he's having impact. So I do think that we need to keep further reinvesting in attack. Ahmad's been not great this season. I think we have to be honest. I've expected more from him.
Especially since AFCON.
Since AFCON, he hasn't. Yeah, and actually under Amorim, weirdly, in that 3-4-3, when those two lads were off on the way to AFCON, in Bumo and Ahmad, we were going, what are we going to do? That's all our goals. Our whole right-hand side's going to AFCON. What are we going to do? And then after that, it hasn't really worked out. So, yeah, I agree. I think we need almost a player in every position. In the midfield, we need 3. You know, I honestly do believe we need 3 because that's just to stay at par. We're forgetting Casemiro's leaving. So that's a starter that's leaving. Whoever replaces Casemiro, you're straight in the team, in effect, right? Ugarte is not good enough, / not trusted enough, / gonna leave. That's the only other midfielder we've got after Kobbie Mainoo. So we only have 2 in there. So you have to go and get one past that as well. So I'm thinking, like Jamie says, 2 A-side ones, whatever that's going to cost. And then,
the squad depth.
Mateus Fernandez, mate, honestly, I really like him. I think I'm watching him again for West Ham against Crystal Palace last night. I thought he was excellent. He wins duels. He can cover the grass. He's really technical. He can get on the ball. He's got an eye for goal. Listen, West Ham paid the best part of 35 to 40 million quid for him. So if they stay up, it's not actually going to be as cheap as we think to get him. But we need those sort of supporting cast midfielders as well. Maybe an Alex Scott from Bournemouth. I like Andre Gomez. They've been, confirmed as relegated now. Wolves, can you go and pick him up for a 25 million? Those sorts of players, Jamie. It can't all just be the top guys, if I'm honest. Angelina Carrick.
Yeah.
Do you think, and Jamie was talking about, sort of saying, still a bit unsure, even though he does understand that, he's beating everybody and he's probably going to have a good end to the season, but he wants to see a little bit more. Are you in the camp of this is Carrick's already, like that Chelsea one cemented it, or are you still a bit cautious, or is there no one else but Carrick? How do you see it?
It's a difficult one because I agree with Jamie and I think you would like to go to the end of the season and see how things finish. But he's responded well, like I said at the beginning of the show. Every moment where we've been like, United have lost this game, they need to step up, they need to show something in the next game. They have actually done that. And I think, 15 to 3rd is still a big accomplishment. I know that, like you said, when Ruben Amorim left things, it's not like we were, in a relegation spot or anything. We weren't even in the bottom half of the table. But I think still, people might argue that the quality of the league this season hasn't been amazing. We've seen some big clubs really drop off that you expect will be coming back firing on all cylinders next season. But I think it's still a big accomplishment. And United have pretty much locked in Champions League football now. A lot of the teams that are rivaling us are playing each other. So obviously that makes it a little bit easier for us. But I think when you're going into negotiations, a lot of players want to know who they're playing for. And to be able to say it is Michael Carrick, I think that would... I'm not saying people are like, oh, my God,
no,
Michael Carrick, let me sign immediately. But there is a little bit of stability there. And I think when you're looking at other options, and I've had this discussion with lots of people, people have said, oh, Luis Enrique... I can't see him leaving PSG at the moment. They've just suddenly woken up from a slumber in the Champions League and could go on to win it again. You think about Oliver Glasner, the way that he's gone about things, I don't think that the hierarchy would welcome that. Iraola, not done it on the biggest stage. I don't really, and this is not a slight against him, but he doesn't strike me as the type of guy with the chops to be at Manchester United, than maybe the charisma. Do I look at him as like a Premier League winning manager at the moment? No, that's just my personal opinion. A World Cup manager? I mean, what? Man United's first game of pre-season is like the 18th of July or something. The World Cup final is the day after. So, again, how are you going to get a World Cup manager to come in? It's a little bit tight. So I think for me, the fact that Michael Carrick has restored order, has calmed things down, has done exactly what we needed him to do, has done well. That game, you think about it, 4 absent centre-backs. And he's able to, get him and his staff are able to get Aiden Heaven and Mazraoui playing the way that they were. And I think it was interesting that Joe Cole and Owen Hargreaves on TV, they were so positive about him. And, maybe Joe Cole's mates with him, I don't know. But he's not a United fan and clearly thinks that, he's clearly a Carrick fan and thinks that he should get the job. Those guys are around the kind of same age as him, I guess. Like him and Joe Cole came through the academy at West Ham. They really like him. The older generation, the kind of class of 92, they don't really seem to be having him as much. Like, I don't get the vibe from like Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, etc., that they're his biggest fan. I think it's interesting, and considering they control quite a lot of the narrative around Man United, you know, would there be a bit more general enthusiasm for him being permanent manager? You know, if they came out to bat for him a little bit more, I mean, you know, they don't have to, but it'd be interesting to see how people's thoughts would be if he did have that kind of class of 92 backing him a bit. But yeah, I think for me, we've got to wait and see, but I agree with the guys. I don't know what else he could do.
Exactly. It feels like we're having like a, I don't know, like a
I
double-edged sword for Michael
but-
Carrick. I do feel a bit so. It's almost like he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
But I think if the Roy Keanes and the Paul Scholes, etc., were
Yeah.
posting about him, being like, "Oh, he's great,"
Yeah,
like waxing
maybe.
lyrical about him, I think people would probably buy into it a bit more.
And then it's like you just got to look at the record. I just think when he came in, if somebody said to you, you were going to play 13 games or 12 games or whatever it is we've done now, you're going to lose 2.
Oh,
You're going to draw
Yeah.
1, and all the rest are going to be wins. And you're going to say, right, what have you done? Go, well, since I've got here, I've won the most points out of every team.
yeah.
Like, since Michael Carrick
Yeah.
has got into situ in January, he's got more points than City, more points than Arsenal.
He's got players
more
that were
points.
struggling,
He's got players
playing
that were
better.
struggling. I've got us the 3rd in the division. And along the way, I've beaten Arsenal away. I've beaten Chelsea away. I've beaten Villa at home. And I've beaten City at home. And if he adds in Liverpool as well, I just think, like, what more do we want as fans? It's like we were so down bad under the last manager, getting 1 win a month. 1 win a month. We used to average a win a month. We couldn't even get back. Remember, forget Frank cutting his hair. It was all about, can Man United get back-to-back wins?
Yeah.
Can we get 2 wins in a row? And we forget where we're coming from. And all of a sudden, now we've lost twice in nearly 4 months. We're like,
People are questioning Carrick.
Champions League. And it's like, a lot of it, I think what we want to do as fans, like Jamie alluded to, and I think you're right to Jamie, is like, we are scarred. We do have PTSD from appointing Ollie after a good run, from thinking we're back, thinking we've got this player, thinking we've got that manager, and it always just falls on its face. But that shouldn't be a stick to beat Carrick with. There still needs to be the thing of football of, well, we have to go with something. You have to make a decision. You can't alleviate all risk.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's why I'm sort of careful to say that, you know, he really could not really have done much more. As I'm sort of listening to you two discuss this, I'm thinking, and again, maybe I'm being a bit too sort of demanding, but I know he's lost a couple of games and he's then responded, again, brilliant, what more can you do? But I'm thinking, you know, because we all sort of cover United, know about United. The issue with United is every sort of reverse, like as in defeat, it shouldn't be, but it is, because, you know, you sort of so success becomes like this massive thing, which you wouldn't necessarily, and it's, so therefore, if you're the manager, it's how you deal with that. Now, he has lost a couple of games, he's dealt with it well, but I just wonder, and maybe this won't happen, I'm not saying it should happen, but if he was to lose 2 or 3, which can happen at United,
Yeah, it can.
Yeah.
especially towards the start of a season, how's he going to respond to that? But to be honest, you know, he deserves the chance.
Opportunity. Yeah, he deserves to see how.
Show. So I'm just sort of thinking a little bit in the past, I suppose. As I sort of said, as you're saying, just because it's happened to other people like Solskjaer, why would it necessarily happen with him? And I'll tell you what I do like, and we do joke about it a little bit because we're in there all the time at his press conferences. I'm not going to say he's dull, but he's very sort of measured, right? Now,
Stoic, yeah.
I love
stoic.
it. It's brilliant. It's
You know,
exactly what we need.
Exactly. You know, I don't particularly love it because I'm
Yeah, you're
You've got a
a
job to do,
provocative,
yeah.
you are. You get after him, you do. And he's not going to give you any lines.
But my inquiries tell me that's basically what he's like. He's not doing it to sort of be difficult or boring, you know, inverted commas. That's how he is. And I think that's a really good actual personality asset or trait to be in this job, because as I just said, everything can be chaotic. United is the end of the world and all the rest of it. If you've got a gentleman at the centre who's basically very Zen-like the Buddha, say, you know, it's okay. That's obviously great for the most important people, the players, the squad, you know, the on-pitch stuff. And I think that's an asset, actually. I mean, I don't know what you two think. What do you think about him tactically? Is he... Listen, he's never going to... Well, not many are ever going to be Pep Guardiola, but I can't... You know, again, I haven't seen enough, and I'm not saying he hasn't got it in him, but I haven't seen it enough to know whether he's inventive in games when it demands it. You know, there was sort of a suggestion that the Leeds thing was maybe a bit too stodgy, you know, the way he's thinking. I don't know. Am I being overly critical? Again, I'm just looking for anything that might... I don't know.
I agree with you. I think there probably are question marks, and I think during his time at Middlesbrough, there were certain questions about tactically what he was capable of doing,
Late subs as well.
late substitutions, etc. But I think, and you know, he touches on his coaches quite a lot, and he's happy to praise them, which I like as well. But I think having somebody like Holland in there is absolutely vital, and I think keeping the team that he's had. I know I was poking fun at Johnny Evans, etc. But
yeah,
you know,
was.
Leave him there, whatever.
Take that back. We've been good from set pieces, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave Johnny Evans there. He's having a good time. He brings, you know, good vibes and that. But I think having Holland in there is very, very important. And I think, I'm not saying that Michael Carrick's got no tactics, but I think having somebody like him who is so experienced is going to be very, very important. But I do get that there's question marks over him.
Yeah, it's more than just about one person. But I do agree. And I just think that, well, there has to be some reward for doing the interim thing well. I don't, you know, I know some people say you can just go, well, thank you for your services. You got us the Champions League. See you later. But
I don't know who's out there.
And that's what I was that's literally what I was just about to say. Like, it's all good saying that, but you have to be comfortable in saying that somebody is attainable, realistically, that is guaranteed better than him. And I don't think that exists. I don't think that exists in Glasner. I don't think that exists in Iriola. It only exists in people like Enrique, in people like Thomas Tuchel. And last time I checked, they're not available. So I think if Carrick gets Champions League, which it looks very, very promising, I think he deserves the job. If he doesn't get it, absolutely, he shouldn't be the Man United manager. But I think when you have a record like what he's done, what more can we ask for? Give him a chance.
They will have given him aims and things that he's had to do. And it will be, you have to go in and get Champions League football. And like you say, he's done it. Yeah. And he's got players playing better. Brought Kobbie Mainoo back in. He's now back to becoming integral for us. So, I think
it's all about recruitment. 70-30, I mean, like 70%, the emphasis is on recruitment this summer more than the manager. Carrick, that's fine. Be a calm, mundane person. Cool pair of hands. Don't let Jamie rage bait you in the press conferences and give up big lines. Just, you know, don't take the bait. That's all we need you to be, Michael.
He's going to be able to resist me.
Yeah, because when Jamie, honestly, the way he goes for it is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Right, let's look ahead though towards the end of the show because we do have Brentford coming up next. And we don't want to go into a false sense of security. You know, Brentford might not be doing as well in terms of winning football matches. They've drawn an awful lot of football matches recently. But if we count our chickens too early, like we did against Leeds, I think easy home game would be all right. 3 points in the bag. Yeah. You come unstuck.
Yeah, I think that is, I mean, it's what, another Monday night game?
Yes.
Just like not needed. Would have liked it. It's a shame that we've had, I think in April, all our home games have been Monday nights, which is a bit unfortunate. Feel bad for the fans on that one. But anyway, Brentford, they've drawn every game they've played since the start of March. And weirdly enough, it's been 0-0 or 2-2. But
unbeaten in their last 6 games, though.
Yeah, exactly. I think they are still a very tough team. I think you've got somebody like Igor Thiago up front. You know, he's been scoring loads. I think it's going to be quite a physical game. And I almost feel like it's going to be a little bit similar to the Everton game, kind of like a tight one, maybe a late goal or two. But, you know, they are a tough team and they're also very good at set pieces as well. So I don't know who defensively is going to be back. We should have Harry Maguire back.
So it should be Harry Maguire in heaven, which would be great.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I don't know about Lenny Yoro. They thought that it was going to be a short-term thing.
He should be back, but... Yeah.
But, you know, I think Aidan Heaven has definitely done enough to prove why can he not start in a centre-back duo with Harry Maguire. So, yeah, but I think set pieces are going to be important. Finding a way to stop Igor Thiago is going to be important as well, but I think it is going to be a tight one.
Jamie, for yourself, is it one that Man United need to be cautious of? You know, Brentford's still got aspirations of getting into Europe, as they should. You know, their European place could get to 7th, so why not? They want to look to consolidate that and get a grip on that. Is this a dangerous game for Man United, or do you expect us to do the business?
I'm afraid I've got some bad news for Manchester United fans. I think Manchester United are going to win this.
Oh, don't do that. Oh, no.
You know how good I am at predicting stuff. No, I think it might be quite difficult. I actually quite fancy, I'm not going to say an easy win, but yeah, a sort of 2-goal margin win, 3-1. So please return to this. Come on.
Well, you'll never be back if you're wrong. If you're wrong on this, we'll never invite you back on.
The reason why I'm saying this, though, is because of what we're talking about, or we have talked about through the show, is the sort of 10-point gap, the fact that, you know, you've won at Chelsea, you've responded, they're becoming more battle-hardened, see the end of the season. I feel like that'll allow them to play, you know, some nice football, front foot, aggressive, all the rest of it, you know, passing it around. I think we might see a bit of a performance.
I hope we do. I really do. I mean, we've got 2 home games in a row against Brentford and Liverpool would be a great way to go. I know we need 6 points maximum to secure top 5. I think, look, listen, Chelsea will probably play Brighton and mess it up or whatnot. So it might even go lower than that. But if we can just win the next 2 and just get it done and dusted, and we just get planning for the summer, it'll be great. And for you, actually, just before we move on to the bet builder, actually, how important is 3rd place to you? Do you care? 3rd, 4th, 5th? You know, that perception of limping over the line, because we're saying we want to see more. Well, we're also saying we feel like we're pretty much there for Champions League qualification. So the more, I guess, is sort of stylistically, how do we get over the line? Do you care if we limp over the line from this position? Is that a bad look for you? Could that make you sort of maybe say Carrick isn't the right man? Or if we fly over the line, you know, beating Brentford, beating Liverpool, really all guns blazing, scoring more goals, would that be the sort of needle mover for you to be like, actually, undoubtedly, you know, this is why Carrick needs to be the manager?
Yeah, I think it's still important how Man United finish this season, because I think it sets the tone and it sets the narrative for the summer and for recruitment. I don't know, I'm not a professional footballer, but I think a team finishing 3rd versus finishing 5th just sounds a bit more appealing even. Yeah. Like optically it looks good. But I think, finishing the season strong is very, very important. And I think, it helps Michael Carrick. I think, again, the mentality of the players, because if we limp over the line, they've got Champions League football, but the players haven't played particularly well. There's a lot of question marks, you know, there's discussions in the media, etc. I just think, you know, like when it's your last day of school, like you want it, when you're going away for the summer, you want it to be a good day. You don't want it to be a rubbish day, do you? So I think like the towards the end of the season, before everyone goes off, it's just nice to finish on a strong note. And I think 3rd, I mean, it's silly, isn't it? Because you look back at some of the games and think, oh, some of those draws that we had, like points-wise, you could even be, you know, that's obviously a bit silly. But, I think 3rd would be nice. 15th to 3rd.
Yeah. It's a massive return.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about finishing on a strong note, that's what we're about to do now, because it's time for our bet builder with BetMGM. Remember, you can download the app or head over to betmgm.co.uk. And Manchester United taking on Brentford at Old Trafford. What have you got for us?
Yes, so I have gone with half-time, full-time results. So I've gone with a draw at half-time and Man United to win at full-time. You know, Brentford draw a lot of games, like I said, so this is going to be tight, but I still expect Man United and Michael Carrick to get the job done eventually. Over 1.5 goals. So every one of United's games at Old Trafford this season under Michael Carrick have had more than 1 goal. United often let teams score, but score themselves. So I'm going with over 1.5 goals and over 4.5 shots on target. So I guess if in my world, if they're scoring over 1.5 goals, and you'd like to think that it's, you know, two shots on target, so that's, you know, kind of half of it done anyway. But I know that there weren't a lot of shots against Chelsea at the weekend, but United had, like 7 against Leeds? So, I think that one could be realistic. So, yes, I've gone with half-time, full-time results being draw at half-time, United at full-time, over 1.5 goals and over 4.5 shots on target.
Good stuff. I like it. It sounds very, very positive in our favour. Now, that's all we've got time for on Inside Devils. A big thanks to Angelina Kelly and Jamie Jackson, and, of course, a very sick and poorly Crookie. He did well to get in. This show is sponsored by BetMGM. Download the app or visit betmgm.co.uk, 18+. Gambleaware.org. Please gamble responsibly, and we'll see you next time.